Greetings, fellow humans. I am Hugh.
And I am Man.
And together we are definitely not
Two
kobolds in a trench coat. We enjoy human activities, such as paying taxes,
having existential crises,
and RPG horror stories. Let's see what we've got today.
First up, we have a DM who denies their warlock a level up, a DM who casually kills a beloved NPC, a DM who takes a party's power away, and a DM who only planned on a party being dumb.
I don't think your patron is strong enough. By Reddit user, Interesting Land 6471. This happened to my friend a few days ago, and I am still not over it. When I heard her telling me this story, I couldn't help but laughing. She's playing a human warlock sorcerer and has reached level 15 last session. It was time to level up, and she wanted to take a level in warlock, which would have given her hurl through hell. But the DM denied her request, and just said, I don't imagine your patron being strong enough for the level 14 feature. Apparently, he headcanoned her patron to not be able to make more damage than he already does. He argued that it was a weak argument, because that would mean she wouldn't even be able to level up more in Warlock if the patron was unable to make her stronger. And the DM just said that she should take a different ability from another subclass. In my opinion, the DM just didn't know how to balance hurl through hell. So he came up with this weird excuse. I'm so intrigued what will come of this. He's still talking to a DM about the issue, but I had a very good laugh about this. Damn.
I mean, I agree with OP. This is probably just a situation where the DM didn't know how to balance the hurl through hell, because that's a pretty powerful spell.
That's 10d10 of damage, which is a lot, averages out about 50. However, at level 15, a party should be comfortably putting out that kind of damage. The DPS players at least should be able to do comfortably within that range, so it's pretty typical for a party of this level. The DM should absolutely be capable of throwing monsters at them that can resist that.
Oh, 100%. It feels like lazy DMing, but I will say it is also a very lazy excuse. Like, oh, your patron isn't strong enough for that. You can't have that feature. It's one thing to be like, that's kind of a game-breaking feature, and I don't really want to use it in my game, because some DMs will do that, and sometimes that's fair, because some spells are a little OP'd. But when you're a level 14, level 15 party, 50 damage, that's what you should be outputting.
This is just either an inexperienced DM or a lazy DM who doesn't necessarily want to deal with such a powerful spell. I do though really appreciate Hurl Through Hell as an ability. It sends you hurtling through these alternate dimensions and you come out so traumatized that it deals 10d10 psychic damage to you. It's trauma damage. That's kind of relatable.
Oh, 100%. I think I took that early on in life. DM casually kills a beloved NPC by Reddit user Znihilist. I've been playing LMOP. In case people don't know what that is, it's one of the earliest D&D 5e adventures. It was a good intro while the DM resolves another campaign before we launch into the homebrew. During the first third of the campaign, we raid a dungeon and find a few small goblins in a pretty bad situation, and we decide to help them, but we bond with one goblin specifically. We ask the goblin to wait for us outside, and after clearing the dungeon, we get out and adopt the goblin in, and we let it adventure with us as our cook. A bad cook, though. We really bonded with this small, fragile creature. Eventually, we come back to town, and we realize that there is a doppelganger in town, and it is trying to wreak havoc. While investigating and talking to some of the NPCs in the town, we discover that they found the body of a goblin in the same place that we asked our goblin to wait for us. It was the goblin we asked to wait for us outside. DM had the doppelganger kill the goblin, then pretend to be it for so many sessions. A few of us were in denial for a while, unable to process the trauma of their fake bond. We miss our droop, and we don't trust you anymore, Rob, in case you're reading this.
I honestly just find that brilliant, actually. I'm not actually mad at the DM. DM saw an opening and he took it, and he got you good. I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Fair play. But also, I love the little dig at the end. Rob. Come on, Rob. Give him back Droop.
We all love our quirky NPCs. They made him the cook, and I love that he was a bad cook. In the first ever campaign I ran, I ended up creating a NPC called Jophus. And Jophus was supposed to die very early on, before they even really knew him that well.
I don't expect anything from you except to die and be a very cheap funeral. You're gonna die now. Stop him! He's supposed to die!
And then the party saved him and kept him alive for a ridiculously long amount of time despite my best efforts to kill him. I eventually succeeded, but I at least killed him in a heroic way, saving the rest of the party. And then the party proceeded to drag his corpse with them the rest of the way till they got somewhere they could revivify him after casting Spare the Dying on him. Parties love their NPCs, man.
You can never predict who your players are going to like as far as your NPCs go, and sometimes they just attach to random NPCs. That's fine. And DMs have to get their revenge somehow, so they don't have to keep voicing the dang NPC.
Messing with your party in ways like this is one of the DM's pleasures. This is kind of one of the things they get to play for. Sorry, OP, I can't be mad at him. I mean, yeah, sure, I'd be mad at him if I was a player. That's your perspective. But from a storytelling standpoint, props to the DM here. I love it. Worst D&D moment in 7 years of playing by DM who doesn't like players being gods in his Becoming Gods campaign by Reddit user DM Ray. So for a little context, this is the third campaign of that DM I'm playing in, and mostly it's really fun. In those years we've come to know the legendary sword, let's call it Cavalorn. This is an anti-god weapon. It makes the wielder immune to the power of the gods, and makes them in its presence weak. However, only an immortal, that's not a god. Also, once in this life, this weapon very rarely appears, mostly at the end of his campaigns. Why is this important? It's a surprise tool that will not help us later. The campaign is about the players becoming gods to form a new pantheon. It's pretty fun in all. We get to do some insane god stuff as we discover and get our powers. We're all in session 12 or something, and we are all gathering followers. Our group is a little dysfunctional because we often play like rivals, but it's still a lot of fun. I, God of War, find out about some bandits with a camp nearby the city. I tell the group I'd like to go there and recruit them as my followers. Most of the group agrees, aside from the God of Peace, obviously, LMAO. So we go there and I start talking with like 2 to 3 bandits, random bandits, a bunch of NPCs. I fail my rolls for persuasion and they don't believe I'm a god. So I was like, okay, I'ma show them. That's when the God of Peace held me back and we argued a bit. One of the other players took his side too, but I was adamant. So I wished to talk to the leader of these random bandits on some random road, which just got here.
Interesting setup. I like that you have to convince the bandits that you're a god. I think that's fun, and the fact that you failed your convincing is kind of hilarious.
I'm wondering what they were going to do to show them that he was a god. That's the question here that made the God of Peace hold them back. What were they going to do? What was the argument about? I feel like there's a specific piece of information we need here.
I love this idea of the role play that it gives the characters, and the fact that you're not just being like, oh, I'm a god, and everybody's like, oh, cool, it's a god. I don't know how they're gonna convince the bandits that he's actually a god. That's a very good question. Like, start a war?
I mean, I thought he would have just killed a couple of them. That's what I think was going on here. I could see a God of Peace objecting to that. But again, if that was the case, I feel like the rest of the party might not have taken the God of Peace's side here. They might have been okay to let them do that because they're just bandits after all. So they call their leader, a Goliath guy in bandit equipment. He sits down and I show my godly light, and he is neither impressed nor anything else. Then he tells us to look behind us, and he laughs. We're confused and he went all smugly. I just wanted to see if I can bend gods to my will as well. So this random bandit guy doesn't care apparently that 5 gods stand in front of him. Okay, fair enough. I was about to unleash some divine judgment on them, as is the nature of my god's domain. And then it happens. Random bandit pulls out Cavalorn, and we all lose our godly powers.
I kind of figured that was going to end up happening given the intro, but seriously?
It feels like a little bit of a weird time to pull it out. It doesn't sound like they're that far along in the campaign if they've only got a few followers by the sounds of it. They're not well established, so feels like this should come later.
Why are we giving a random bandit this weapon that either only a god can have or the person who made it chooses?
That feels like that should be built up to who has it. It should be fabled to be in someone's possession, the High Lord of a kingdom or a mage in a tower. Okay, that's a bit cliched, but you get what I'm driving at.
I mean, it's a trope for a reason. It's because it works as an effective storytelling trope. If you're going to have this weapon, it is in and of itself a character in many ways, and so you can't just give it to anybody, because if you just give it to anybody, then it loses its gravitas.
And it randomly just shows up in a place that's entirely unexpected. This is Game of Thrones Season 7 level writing.
And who has a better story than Bran the Broken?
No, God!
Me and another player were confused as hell. The two players against me went like, oh my god, that's all your fault. Like, it was obvious this would happen. So there we are, 5 gods being subdued by some random bandit with the only item in his world that would make that possible. And then the worst part, suddenly the bandits disappear and one of the DM's random reoccurring characters appears briefly, and it appeared the Cavalorn was just an illusion. That makes no sense. Our characters don't know what the sword did, only we players. So how would an illusion of an unknown item turn off our god powers? DM literally just didn't want to roleplay the inferior character, which is a tick from him occasionally.
Yeah. That reeks of a DM that doesn't want to have to deal with god players, although it was like his idea for them to be gods, so...
It's the whole point of the campaign. It was a story of them becoming gods, and them not having to want to deal with godlike powers? What the hell is that? That's just ridiculous.
It sort of feels like somebody trying to deal with their religious trauma in a very unhealthy way. But no, in all seriousness, I agree with OP here when he says that how are they supposed to know, since their characters don't know what this weapon is, so how are they supposed to know that an illusion, and how is this illusion going to actually make them not be able to use their powers?
Yeah, how did an illusion replicate the power of this sword? That makes no sense. I could understand maybe a one-off burner item, maybe a powerful sorcerer created a replica of this sword and it could only be used once because it was a copy. It was an inferior copy and could only be used once. Maybe something like that, but just an illusion and then it still has the same effect as the real thing? This is just weird.
Yeah, it's just lazy DMing really at the end of the day. And you're shutting your players down. You're not allowing them to be their characters and you're just like, oh, well, I have this thing that's just going to make you not have to have powers and then ta-da, like, what is this? It could have been such a really cool campaign. That's the problem, is that this idea of, like, becoming gods and creating a new pantheon, I love that idea. But when you're not going to let them actually be gods and use their powers, well, what's the point of your campaign? DM wanted us to be dumb as hell, by Reddit user PhantomBlade98. Pathfinder 1E combats are brutal. Very little to no RP. Party of a cleric, bard, fighter, gunslinger, and magus. Me. So, like most sessions, we get dropped off at a random island and told to go into a cave. The fighter was going to be late to the session, but told us to start without him. So, there is one big open room and tunnels to the left and the right. There's nothing in the room, so we go through one tunnel to find a small empty room. No puzzles, no markings, no creatures, nothing. The tunnel continues to a second empty room. After a bunch of searching, we hear something following us. So we stop and wait, but it stops at the same time. We walk back and it keeps its distance. We pretend to walk forward and then sprint back. Still nothing. Okay, weird. Maybe it's a puzzle that'll come up later, so we continue. Third room, also empty. Continue and we're back in the main room. Obviously, we have missed something, so we double back. Every search, all we get is, you hear footsteps following you. We set traps, we throw torches into the darkness, all nothing.
This is a little bit infuriating, really, to be honest. You got to give your players something to go on other than footsteps that they literally cannot catch. There's nothing here. This is just waiting for them to do something, I assume, and they're not doing it. I don't know what this DM's expecting.
Yeah, you got to give them something. Give them a little excitement, because otherwise they're just going to be confused and then think they've missed something, which is what this party did. And then you're just stuck going in circles, literally.
I get having something following the party. Something ominously stalking them through the caves. Great, that gives them a nice sense of threat. Hell, even them not being able to locate it is pretty good. But give them something else to be doing. There's got to be something on the caves, some writing, some treasure, some traps, something else to fight. Give them something to do in this time.
The fighter shows up. It's been an hour of real time and nothing has happened. Finally, the DM says, "You think it's waiting for you to split up, so it can attack you." Okay, well, we're obviously not going to do that. There's no incentive to stay, no locked treasure room, nothing, so we decide just to leave. NPC Captain says, "If you leave this cave, I'll kill you." We ask why. He says, "Because I feel like it." Cool. So we say screw it and split up a little within a move action. Apparently that's not enough, so we do more. Suddenly, one person gets jumped by 3 invisible monsters who all get sneak attacks, and our characters are surprised. After we beat them, we get a treasure map for right outside where there's a chest with thousands of gold. We were never told that we were looking for this treasure.
So it does sound like this DM basically had nothing planned for the session. They got this monster that follows them through the cave, there's a map at the end of the cave, and some treasure outside. That's it. And it's also dependent on the party doing something insanely stupid like split up, which any D&D party who's played more than once knows is a bad idea.
Never split the party. And sure, you can do it, like Campaign 3 of Critical Role, where the party was split up for several sessions, but it was more of a plot device.
And they had other players join them, so they still effectively operated in 2 complete parties.
Exactly. This is just a one-shot, it sounds like, and there's 3 invisible monsters waiting for them to split up just so it might be easier to down the players, I guess. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, DM definitely needs to do better. This doesn't feel like they've put any real effort into it. It's dependent on the party doing something very stupid, which most D&D parties know not to do, and he had nothing else prepared. DM had nothing else prepared whatsoever other than this ambush and a pretty boring treasure hunt.
There's inexperienced DMing, and then there's just plain lazy DMing, and this definitely falls into the latter. They could have been inexperienced, but they were also lazy. Hey, Hugh.
Yes, man?
My Genasi Warlock is trying to find out who her parents are.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you could say she's interested in genealogy.
And with that, we have definitely not been
Two kobolds in a trench coat.
Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make the necessary sacrifices to Tiamat. We'll see you next time.